Welcome to this introductory painting guide to painting the Legions, the very first one in the series. In this video tutorial, you will learn how to apply a zenithal highlight, how to create an aged grimdark style yellow, how to apply simple weathering, and apply transfers. This is the perfect video for all skill ranges, and it concentrates on creating a battle-ready marine. Okay, to begin with, we start by highlighting all the black areas with Eclipse grey and then Graphite using Scale 75 paints. You don't have to use these paints, it's just simply the recipe that I prefer to use. We need a dark grey and a light grey. I'm running the airbrush at 20 psi and the paint is thinned down roughly 2 parts paint to 1 part thinner. I'm using life colour thinner, and the paint brush I'm using, the airbrush I'm using, is the Iyanden CC custom micron. Okay, next up we apply a zenithal highlight developing the volumes of the armor plate, and I use Opaque white, and this is from Medea ComArt white. It is the best white to use through an airbrush on the market. One thing you may encounter is that the airbrush gunks up every now and again with lighter colours. The Medea ComArt avoids that. Primary yellow is used from the Scale 75 artist range. Again, this isn't necessarily the perfect yellow to use for you. I bought the set over Christmas. I'm dying to try them out on absolutely everything. Imperial yellow from Games Workshop, or any primary bright yellow will do. We need to add 2 to 3 layers on top of this base coat. Now, the reason why we're building on top of a black base coat is that we want the yellow to struggle. This will give a dark, almost greenish tint to any overlaying colours we will add. We'll add 2 to 3 layers of the yellow, and then we will add white into the mixture at roughly 50-50, a mixture between them. This reinforces the highlights. I'm airbrushing this on the top of the chest, top of the armour plate, top of the backpack, and top of the thighs. This helps clarify the highlights and adds a luminosity to the armour, and it also prepares it for the next stage. Iyanden yellow from Games Workshop. This is a contrast paint. Life colour thinner is added. We are looking at roughly 1 part paint to 1 part thinner, so it's an even distribution, it's an even mixture of paint to thinner. Again, I'm using life colour thinner, and I'll apply this at least once across the entirety of the yellow armour plate. Now, in subsequent passes with the airbrush, I will work on the upper mid-tone through to the shadow. If we could divide a paint job up into 5 parts, we can say it comprises a shadow, lower mid-tone, upper mid-tone, and highlight. Every single portion of the yellow will be hit from highlight to shadow. The second layer will only go from the upper mid-tone through to the shadow. The third pass of the airbrush will only go from the mid-tone through to the shadow, and so forth, to build up that contrast. Again, the airbrush is running at 20 psi. I don't change the modulation. Instead, I affect trigger control. So the further I hold back the trigger, the more paint will flow out. The less I depress it, the less paint will come out. Finally, Reiksland Fleshshade is added into the darkest recesses of the armour plate to knock off some of that green tinge and add a warmer element to it. Now, there are many different ways of painting yellow. This isn't the definitive version. I wanted to paint the yellow in this style to represent a grim, dark, dirty, battle-worn yellow. This isn't a bright, lustrous, warm-toned yellow. This is the kind of yellow that you'd see at the Siege of Terra amidst a campaign. There are tons of different tutorials available on the Patreon already. Have a look at the yellow colour swatch. Have a look at the Imperial Fist tutorial section, and you'll find all different kinds of colour combinations that you can possibly use. But the process doesn't change from shadow to highlight, pre-shade to adding this on top. Right, Iyanden yellow is then used very carefully in the shadows of the armour plate to help define them. Thamar Black by Formula P3 is added to all the vents and all the rubberized section. Red leather from Scale 75 is added to the truges, Those are the leather straps that adorn your marines. And I also added to the underside of the cloak. Next, I add a skin tone to the piece. I would recommend using Cadian Flesh tone as a base, but you can see I've mixed up my own colour recipe using the colours I have on my palette. I'll add a touch of magenta, a touch of blue, to help create the skin tone I like. If you want a greater in-depth understanding of how you create your own custom blends and skin tones, there is a masterclass available in the 1 hour challenge. I would highly suggest that you test it out. It's a great icebreaker. It's a great way of just meditating, zoning out for an hour, mixing up some paint on the palette and seeing where it leads. Okay. The eye lenses are painted in Jorildyn Turquoise. And the pauldrons are painted with Deathless Metal from Formula P3. Emerald Alchemy is added to all the silver areas of the piece. And next onto the weathering. So I take black and I dab it on my palette. I can feel free to mix it in with previous colours that I have on there. And I dab it onto the armour plate. Now, as you can see, I've done a previous layer where I've used pure yellow, pure Sol yellow, to highlight the armour plates by using this chipping technique. Chipping, battle damage, wear and tear. All the hallmarks of a Heresy army. To finish off the piece, gloss varnish is added to any area I want to add decals to. I simply use Micro Sol and Micro Set. First I use the Micro Set, it's the blue one, over the armour plate. I'll apply the transfer, which has been placed in warm water to separate it from its backing. I allow it to be separated for a couple of moments. And I reapply the Micro Set on top. Ideally, you would let this set for around half an hour before adding the Micro Sol. The Micro Set helps bind it to the surface and softens the glue used to create the decal. Micro Sol is a more aggressive adhesive and it will help melt that decal even further. When applying Micro Sol, it might be a good idea to use a Q-tip or earbud to help press down any irregular edges that may occur in the process. Feel free to base as you like, but that's it. A battle-ready marine, and I clocked the time. It takes 40 minutes to paint this. 40 minutes. And that's it. A battle-ready marine. Feel free to base as you like. And that is it. Thank you very much for watching the inaugural video in the Painting the Legions series. There will be a PDF available via the website for free. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.